Hello, I'm the FanFic Critic. I read it so you don't have to. Today we are taking a look at another Pokemon fanfic by the name of An Enterprising Encounter by Not Molo. Let's begin. It was a warm afternoon throughout the Serene region, and two Pokemon, a Chikorita by the name of Pepper and an Eevee called Ginger, were traveling along reasonably rocky path leading to a conspicuous mansion in the distance. Well, that entire sentence could have been reworded. Instead of having it say, reasonably rocky path leading to a conspicuous mansion in the addition, it should have said they were walking along a rocky path leading to this mansion in the distance. They were part of a semi-successful exploration team named Enterprise, and they were answering an interesting request left on the bulletin board at the guild. The leader and close friend, Ace, was currently preoccupied with a medical checkup back in Treasure Town. I wonder if it's close to Potland. It wasn't very often that they ventured without Ace into unspecified assignments, but both shared the same impression that it would be as normal as any other. They eventually arrived at the end of the stony path. Stopping outside the mansion, Pepper and Ginger looked at one another before they walked side by side through the tall, towering, spike-topped gates and entered the luxurious estate of Darkening Latsamoni. That's an interesting name. Neither Pepper nor Ginger knew about Darkening other than his name written on the request, which also supplied his current residence, but nothing about what he wanted. As they slowly strode up to the evened garden path, they couldn't resist glancing around at the fancy atmosphere. There were two Gyarados-themed fountains, one on either side of the path, which were sprouting out fresh, sparkling water endlessly in the arched formation. Not too far away were rows upon rows of flowers, all of different colors and different kinds frequently being attended by a friendly-looking blossom gardener. "This place is very pretty," Ginger said to Pepper, a smile stretched across her cheerful complexion. "Yeah, it is. It begs the question why the person who owns all of this posted that request." Pepper wondered out loud. The two Pokemon came to a halt once they reached the large crimson-painted double doors of the mansion. A single vine extended from Pepper's body. Oh, they're both girls. Oops. Which she used to lightly pound. Well, we can assume that Pepper's a very manly woman. Pound on the door twice. After what seemed like several seconds, the door opened up, revealing a Blissey donned in maid attire. She looked down at Pepper and Ginger, putting on a warm, welcoming smile. "Hello there. We are here to see Mr. Darkening Latsamoni." Whatever. And now Pepper has a girly voice. Pepper informed the female servant. "Can we please come in?" "Is he expecting you?" the maid asked. "Not exactly, but we are here to answer the request he left on the bulletin board in Wigglytuff Guild," Pepper explained to the maid, wearing a small smile. "We are from Team Enterprise, and we boldly go where no Pokemon has ever gone before." "I see," the maid said, keeping her friendly tone of voice, stepping to one side. "You may enter. Please wait in the living room. Mr. Latsamoni," oh, I get it, Latsamoni, "is currently upstairs, but will be down very shortly." Pepper nodded and walked into the mansion, followed closely by Ginger, who took no time in glancing around in awe at the innards of the huge, stately home. The living room was simple to find, and they both took a seat on the same comfortable couch to wait for Darkening to make his appearance. Ginger was still curiously spying around the room, catching sight of a different Blissey maid cleaning a picture frame with a feather duster. She also saw an oak-brown grandfather clock in the corner of the room, monotonously clicking away. The silence was broken by the sound of someone descending the stairs, which were in clear sight from where Ginger and Pepper were sitting. They swiftly hopped down from the couch and took a brisk pace over to the bottom of the stairs and saw a male Mincino walking down towards them. Once he reached the bottom step, Pepper cleared her throat and walked over to him. "Are you darkening lots of money?" she politely inquired. The Mencino seemed shocked that Pepper would ask him such a thing. "Am I? Oh, no. No. I'm not Mr. Lamotzi Chikorita. I am just a humble, ordinary servant." All of a sudden, someone was heard loudly clearing their throat. Pepper and Ginger looked towards the source of the sound and saw Pikachu standing on the top step, wearing the strangest attire the two exploration team members had ever seen. The Pikachu, obviously male, what was his ding-dong hanging out if they don't wear pants in this, was wearing a well-ironed coal black tuxedo with a single pocket on the right side. There was a golden chain hanging out of his pocket, presumably attached to a pocket watch, matching color and style somewhere in the depths of the pocket. On his head sat a top hat made out of silk with a crimson strap and two neatly cut out holes for his ears. Lastly, there was a recently cleaned monocle placed over his right eye, adding to his already stereotypical appearance. Pepper and Ginger couldn't take their eyes off of him as they watched him leisurely walk down the stairs. "I, my dear charismatic Chikorita, am the one and only darkening lots of money," the Pikachu stated, walking over to the two of them. Pepper rolled her eyes, which, for better or for worse, was left unnoticed by the wealthy rodent. "My name is Pepper, and this is Ginger. We are from Team Enterprise, and we are here to fulfill the request you had posted in the Wigglytuff Guild." "Hello, Mr. Lots of Money," Ginger graciously chirped, wagging her tail in happiness. Darkingly only gave the youthful Eevee a single, uninterested glance before turning his attention to Pepper. "I must admit," he began to say, reaching into his tuxedo, "I am surprised that the request would be answered this quickly." "Yeah, about that. It really helps the team who wish to help you when you state that you are actually want the I'll have to reread that, I apologize. Yeah, about that. It really helps the team who wish to help you when you state what you actually want on the request itself," Pepper said, using her vines to suspend the written request in front of the rich rodent's face. Well, I am a very busy Pokemon, and at the time of writing that particular request, I was a little low on free time," Darkening explained to Pepper, taking out a long cigarette holder from inside his tuxedo pocket. "You had enough time to write down your name and address, but not enough time to put down your actual request?" Pepper asked, raising her eyebrow curiously and frowning slightly. Darkening chuckled amusingly. "I think we've pretty much established how vague my request was, my dear Chikorita," he said, signaling for his Mencino servant to light his cigarette with a D-engraved golden lighter. Conceited much? "What I want is something of high value, something which can't be purchased in any known store." Ginger tilted her head to one side. "What's that, sir?" she cutely inquired, coughing a little bit on the vile smoke now filling the air. "It certainly wouldn't be dignity," Pepper mumbled under her breath. She cleared her throat and gave a disapproving frown at Darkening. "Mr. Lots of Money, I know this is your home, but I would advise you to put that cigarette out. Not only is it bad for your health, but neither Ginger or I would appreciate the foul scent wafting in our faces." Ginger meekly nodded in agreement. "Pepper is right, Mr. Lots of Money. It can do many bad things to your lungs," and her voice seemed to trail off as a sad facial expression appeared. For a few moments, Darkening remained silent as he puffed away on his cigarette holder, much to the dismay of Pepper, who was trying her best to hold in her ever-building frustration. "Thank you for the public service announcement, but I am fully aware of the risks," Darkening said, forming a warm smile, looking at Pepper. "Normally, I would get offended at a commoner is telling me such third-grade information. However, I can sense sincere contemplation from you, my delightful Chikorita, so I shall let this slide. Something tells me that Darkening the Pikachu has something for the Chikorita. Bow, chicka, bow, wow, wow, wow." Pepper groaned irately and rolled her eyes once more. "Listen, just tell us what it is you want, and we'll be on our way." Darkening blew a plume of smoke into the air before stubbing out the cigarette in an ashtray held by the Mencino servant. With a single wave of his paw, Darkening dismissed the great-furred servant from their sight. Pepper was relieved that normal air was now filling her and Ginger's lungs, but remained frustrated about Darkening's flirtatious attitude and his stalling, which she knew was deliberate. "Ah, yes, where are my manners? I do apologize. Some of my superior stature must not dwindle into other meaningless subjects," Darkening said proudly. The sophisticated Pikachu cleared his throat and took a step closer to Pepper. In reaction to this, Pepper nervously took a step backward. She wanted to keep a good distance away from the person she was gaining an uneasy distrust towards. What I want, my inquisitive little explorer, is a devoted admirer. Darkening finally informed Pepper whilst wearing a sly smirk. Ginger gasped in surprise, placing her paws in front of her O-shaped mouth. Oh! It was at this point that Pepper's anger had reached its peak and she couldn't contain it anymore. She jumped back and unleashed a fury of razor leaf no sooner than she landed at the tuxedo-sporting rodent. Darkening squealed in panic, throwing his whole body down to the carpet, evading the leafy assault. You low-down creep! Pepper growled, gritting her teeth in anger. I knew you were up to something underhanded. This isn't the first time we received fake requests, you know. What? What? You meanie? Ginger yelled in anger. She was no way near as enraged as Pepper was, but she growled at Darkening all the same. Darkening got back up to his feet and dusted off his tuxedo before looking at Pepper. He was not annoyed at Pepper, despite her attempt to attack him. The Pikachu chuckled and wagged his finger at the Chikorita, much to her infuriation. Now, there's no need for that type of response, my delightful, infuriated, leaf-headed guest, Darkening proclaimed, retaining his calm and suave attitude. My affluent abode is a place for the highest degree of sophistication, not a battle arena of dysfunctional thugs. He closed his eyes, only to open them up again a few seconds later. They were now full of blue and orange spirals, circling around and around at a deadly pace. His eyes are full of blue and orange spirals. Okay. I'll go with that. Surely, even you as angry as you are now must realize that. Upon seeing the abnormal spectacle forming in the eyes of Darkening, Pepper let out a small, astonished gasp. For a reason beyond her understanding, she felt her anger toward Darkening mysteriously fade away to be replaced with relaxed pleasure. Oh, I see, he's hypnotizing her. She wanted to look away from the spiraling eyes, but found herself unable to achieve that simple task. Slowly but surely, her own eyes began to mimic the assortment of colors pulsating in Darkening's alluring eyes. Pepper? Ginger asked, confused about this awkward moment of silence. Are you okay? Wrong okay, but I digress. Pepper paid her no notice. Darkening took a step forward and placed his paw gently on the side of Pepper's smooth face. Their eyes never broke contact. There was really no need for your childish outburst, Pepper, Darkening said, bringing in his face closer to Pepper's. You want to be with me. I want to be with you, Pepper said back, a small, happy smile curling up on her tranquil complexion. When Pepper showed off her smile, Darkening showed off his own smile. Seconds later, that smile converted into a devious smirk. That's right, my dear Chikorita. You have to come to terms with the truth being that I am your beloved master. You are my... All of a sudden, the doors to the mansion flung open, making both Darkening and Ginger jump in surprise. Pepper was too entranced to pay any heed or to anything else other than Darkening's voice. Standing in the doorway was another Pikachu. This one was younger than Darkening and was not wearing fancy attire, but rather a seemingly worn-out yet clean brown utility belt, a silver-trimmed single black glove on his right paw, and a set of dark sunglasses. Ace! Ginger exclaimed in joy, an overjoyed smile appearing on her face. You're here! What the hell do you think you're doing to Pepper, monkey moneybags? The Pikachu known as Ace snarled at Darkening as he approached him. Showing no fear, but anger at his stately home being intruded upon, Darkly boldly turned to face Ace. How dare you enter my home without permission and raise your voice at me, you poor, intolerant rodent! He furiously yelled. In an instant, Ace grabbed a firm hold of Darkening's collar with an enraged yell. He swung him around and threw him against the wall. The impact not only hurt the rich Pikachu, but also wiped the angry expression off his face. Darkening was now shaking in fear at the dominating presence of the infuriated leader of Team Enterprise. So, you think it's a smart idea tricking my teammates here just so you can charm and hypnotize them, huh? Ace asked, making his way over to Darkening, clenching his fist. Don't think I didn't see you, and don't think I will let you off this easily. Darkening let out a shrill scream of terror before quickly scampering to his feet and dashing out of his mansion. Ace followed close behind, not willing to allow Darkening to escape. Ginger remained behind, waving her paws in front of the hypnotized Pepper's face. Outside, Darkening was frantically running towards the side of his mansion, sweat streaming down his quivered cheeks. This was the first time someone had ever chased him like this. In the past, all his sneaky, hypnotic activities always went off without consequences. In his frenetic rush, he did not notice that he was heading straight towards the flower bed. Sir! The Blossom Gardener shouted out, quickly noticing her scared, prosperous employer. Go around my flowers! Go around! Darkening came to a sudden halt inches away from trampling on the eye-catching, fresh-scented flowers. After regaining his balance, he whizzed around the flower bed and ran around the side of the mansion. Blossom gave a sigh of relief and walked over to the flowers to water them. Ace soon appeared, and instead of going around the flower bed, he leaped over them, barely clearing it. The Blossom narrowed her eyes in annoyance and watched Ace run around the corner after Darkening. Darkening, now close to exhaustion from his running, arrived at his garage. At this garage. It would make more sense if it just said his garage. Or the garage, not this garage. There were many posh, colorful, well-polished vehicles sitting in the garage, all custom-made for a Pokemon of Darkening's size. He didn't have time to look for the fastest car out of his collection, so he hopped into a small, topless, red Jeep, which was the closest vehicle to him. To his relief, the key was in the ignition. He swiftly turned the key, turning up the roar of the engine. Aha! Yes, yes, yes! Darkening shouted happily, relieved that the engine did not stall and that he would soon be safely away from Ace. At that moment, Ace appeared and was forced to promptly roll to one side to avoid getting run over by Darkening as he drove out of the garage. Darkening pressed the pedal down all the way it could, picking up speed. In no time at all, he reached the end of his estate and carelessly crashed through the gates. After driving about a mile, Darkening calmed down and dropped his speed to be more law-abiding. He let out a relaxed sigh and put on a cocky grin, thinking that he escaped from Ace's wrath. His eyes then casually shifted over to the right, glanced into his mirror. He saw the reflection of a male Snivy giving a berry to a female Mincino on the side of the road. The Mincino blushed and kissed the Snivy on his cheek. Darkening wasn't one to smile at emotional scenes between two wild Pokemon, but in celebration of his escape, he made an exception just this once. After they scurried into the forest, Darkening turned his full attention back to the road ahead. He reached into his tuxedo to take out a long cigarette holder. However, a laugh that bordered the lines of insanity rang through his ears, making his whole body freeze in fright. Darkening gulped and looked behind him. His eyes widened in shock, and his jaw dropped open at what he saw. There was a huge monster truck painted with a grass-green coating and a white zebra stripes, chasing after him and quickly gaining. Driving this eyesore of a vehicle was none other than Ace. No way! Darkening screamed in sheer disbelief, stepping on the gas to try and outspeed the pursuing four-wheeled behemoth. Where on earth did he find that thing? Well, I may not be the best driver, but there's no way I'm going to let him catch me. Darkening abruptly swerved off the road and drove into a forest. Ace poked his head out of the open window and smirked. "Ah, he wants to go off-road," he said in a loud and mocking tone of voice. It was a bumpy ride for the frightened hypnotist, and it was proving to be quite difficult to keep control of his Jeep. His nervous disposition wasn't helping his attempt to regain control of his vehicle. Ace's monster truck, on the other hand, had much better handling and was gaining on Darkening with each passing second. "Aw, nobody wants to play with me," Ace shouted in a deliberately dorky and sardonic tone. I probably said that wrong, oh well. Darkening gained control of his Jeep and drove straight through an arc made by a few trees with a bush underneath, whacking his head against a particularly low-hanging tree branch after he crushed the bush under the weight of the Jeep. "Loser!" came the taunting voice of Ace from close behind. Darkening looked over his shoulder and noticed that to his utmost horror that Ace was inches away from running into the back of him. However, instead of ramming into the Jeep, Ace drove up to the side of Darkening and slowed down a little to match his speed. He leaned slightly out the window and looked down at the Pikachu, who had yet to notice Ace's new position. Darkening glanced over to his right and jumped at the sight of Ace staring directly at him. "Darkening, from that mansion, right? This is weird!" Ace exclaimed quite sarcastically, grinning. Ace started to whistle merrily as he pressed a circular button on the dashboard which opened up the front part of his monster truck. Once it was fully raised, Ace took out the cigarette lighter and tossed it at Darkening. It hit the prosperous electrical mouse on his forehead, leaving a small hoop-shaped scorch mark before dropping down onto his knee. With one paw still positioned firmly on the steel wheel, okay, Darkening tried to pick up the little burning knob with his other paw to throw it away. Unfortunately, it was proving too hot to handle, and he began to frantically juggle it around with one paw. While this was happening, Ace was continuing to whistle nonchalantly as he pressed the button to lower the front part of his truck back down. Darkening finally seized hold of the safe part of the cigarette lighter and held it up to Ace, laughing a smug, triumphant laugh. "Aha!" Darkening exclaimed, putting on a self-satisfied smirk. The one-gloved Pikachu did not respond to Darkening. Instead, he grinned widely and pointed at something ahead. Darkening quickly turned his head to see what Ace was pointing at. It was a tree directly in front of his path, and it was too late for him to do anything to evade it. His eyes widened in fear as the monocle dropped out of his right eye. Darkening screamed loudly and shrilly in terror right before his Jeep crashed into the tree. His whole body jolted forward, but thanks to his seatbelt, Darkening wasn't injured as badly as he could have been. He breathed in and out and wiped the sweat dripping from his slightly singed forehead. Suddenly remembering that Ace was chasing him, Darkening looked to his side and saw not only had the monster truck stopped not too far away, but it was also facing him. Ace's smile opened up to a taunting smirk right before he revved the engine. Darkening gulped fearfully and, expecting the worst from the situation, began the hastening progress of undoing his seatbelt. Ace drove towards Darkening's stationary Jeep with the intent of crushing it under his truck's superior magnitude. Quick to notice this, Darkening yelped and undid his seatbelt just in time to jump out of his Jeep to safety. The monster truck easily crushed the Jeep as it drove over the top of it in seconds after Darkening's lucky escape. Darkening's lack of knowledge about the forest did not stop him from running away from in a random direction. His main concern was to get as far away from the revengeful Ace as possible. Ace watched him from his truck as Darkening pathetically stumbled and tumbled his way deeper into the forest until he was out of sight. "I hope I never have the misfortune of meeting that creep again," Ace said to himself, a frown appearing over his face to replace his amused expression. With his revenge satisfied, Ace turned around and drove back through the forest, eventually ending back on the main road. Ace arrived back at the Lots of Money Manor to see his two teammates, Pepper and Ginger, waiting patiently for him by the gates. Darkening's hypnotic hold over Pepper's mind had worn off mainly due to his absence and Ginger's caring interference. Ace parked his monster truck just outside of the entrance and got out. No sooner had he stepped inside, he was playfully and lovingly tackled to the ground by Ginger. Ace looked up at the beaming face of his EV friend and smiled back at her. Pepper was silent, ashamed of herself for allowing Darkening to hypnotize her. However, seeing the warm moment transpiring in front of her eyes made a small smile curl up on her face. "Okay, Ginger, that's enough," Ace told her, still smiling. "Please allow me to get up." Ginger nodded and hopped off backwards. Ace got to his feet, and together with his team walked off to head back home. Ace took the keys from the monster truck from his belt and threw them over the gates. The keys soared through the air and plopped into the mouth of one of the Gyarados fountains. Ace then picked up the pace to catch up with Ginger and Pepper. He hoped that neither nor his friends would ever meet the prosperous rodent ever again. Hours later, with the darkness of the night had engulfed the region, Darkening emerged from the forest, drained from his death-defying experience and his long, unplanned, directionless trek. His tuxedo was ripped and torn, and his gel-washed fur was now scuffy with a few scratch marks from other Pokemon. He walked up to the side of the road and glanced left and right, trying to figure out which way led back to his mansion. All of a sudden, he heard the rev in the engine, which naturally made him jump and shiver. Thinking it was Ace coming back to finish him off, Darkeningly feebly whimpered in fear and turned around to run back into the forest. However, before he had the chance to flee, he heard the vehicle pull up on the road behind him. "No, no, no!" Darkening cried, dropping down into a fetal position. "Slade, is that you?" asked the voice that certainly didn't belong to Ace. Darkening stopped whimpering and shaking like an unstable jelly to look towards the source of the voice. A stylish black Lamborghini Diablo SV was parked up with the driver hanging his head out the window. The driver was all too familiar to the affluent Pikachu. It was Deneville Terclaw, the Weevil. Master! Darkening cried in happiness, tears of delight streaming down from his weary eyes. Yeah, it's me, Deneville said, a smile forming on his face. What are you doing out here this late? And why do you look like you had a struggle with a Charizard? Darkening was about to tell him about all what happened, but quickly decided against it. He didn't want to give his Weevil master the impression that he was weak and unable to look after himself. After clearing his throat, Darkening tried his very best at putting on a smug smirk. I was just bored sitting around my mansion all day and decided to go for a leisurely and relaxing stroll through the forest. He lied as he walked over to open the door to the passenger seat. Unfortunately, I wasn't looking where I was going and I had a rather nasty tumble. Deneville suspiciously raised his eyebrow. I see. Well, try and be more careful next time, slave, he said back, constantly eyeing Darkening's untidy and wounded condition. Let's return to the mansion, shall we? I am starving. Darkening closed the door, and Deneville swerved around on the spot to drive in the direction of the mansion. As they began their way towards his estate, Darkening began to sinisterly ponder what to do about Ace if he ever met up with him or his team again. Unfortunately for him, his throbbing headache was making it rather difficult for him to think up anything diabolical. Darn that Ace, he mumbled quietly to himself. Don't think that you can get away with humiliating me like that. One of these days, I shall have my revenge on you, someday, somehow. Despite his relentless headache, he managed to smile evilly. I will make you grovel in front of my superior self like a lowly common scum you are. I will make you fear the name Darkening. Lots of money. The car suddenly went over a huge bump, sending Darkening's body upwards, causing him to whack his head on the ceiling. Don't forget to wear your safety belt, slave, Deneville advised his Pikachu slave. End. Well, that story was rather interesting, I will admit. It had a couple of little minor errors in it, but overall it was a very well-written story. Well, I'm the FanFic Critic. I read it, so you don't have to, and if I was really ripping off the Nostalgia Critic, I would look like this. Yeah, it's too hot to be wearing this. Have a nice day, guys.